Hey, this is Open Mic Night of the Living Dead. This week, we're tackling John Carpenter's 1982 now classic, The Thing.
The creature's creeping right behind you. I hope you finally find a little slice of peace and light. 'Cause it comes crashing down tonight. Welcome to the open mic. When we call your name, you'll die. But there's no need to dread. This is the open mic night of the living dead.
All right.
Okay.
How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. How are you doing?
I'm okay. Full disclosure, at the time of this recording, I am getting over what is called COVID-19. And I'm not, the main symptoms are gone, but I still have a bit of a weak voice and a bit of a weak soul.
Yeah, you definitely got laid out this time.
Because you got it as well, but you always seem to champ through it better than I do.
I have a lot of health problems, but respiratory illnesses do not hit me as hard as they hit you. And you definitely got hit hard with this, which I suppose is appropriate for today's show. Because I guess COVID's kind of like the thing.
It is like the thing. You're right. It sneaks up on you, takes you over, and all of that good stuff.
People don't trust you anymore. They make you leave and isolate.
That's right. And who knows? We haven't actually put any hot wire to my blood.
Okay, I'm putting it on the to-do list.
That should be the COVID test.
That would be a way more exciting COVID test. I'm trying to imagine getting the girls to submit to a COVID test if that was the case.
Less likely.
Less likely. Already they complain about it. So I suppose drawing blood would probably be a step too far, but man, would it be more interesting.
And as we always say, you know, we got spoilers coming on these full episodes. We're going to be talking about The Thing in detail.
Also spoilers a little bit, at least, for the novella and also the 1950s version of the film.
Well, I haven't seen that yet.
Well, I'm still going to talk about it.
And
I'm Rachel.
oh yeah, I'm John.
See? Slow on the uptake.
I know what I was going to ask you. Where can they find us online?
They can find us online. Find the podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts, wherever you're listening to us now. And we are on socials. That's Instagram, Blue Sky, X, TikTok, and YouTube as OMNLD Pod. So go ahead and find us on there.
What are your first memories of The Thing?
I remember reading the description of The Thing at various times over the years and never being super into watching it. And so the first time I actually watched it was December of 2022. We began this horror movie journey in October of that year, starting with Halloween, and then kind of worked our way through all the classic franchises and a lot of these movies. So the first time I saw it was with you a couple years ago.
And I think that was only my second time seeing it, actually. I watched it over at the neighbor's house because they were like, you haven't seen The Thing? And I watched it there, and I immediately was like, once we can stream it or whatever, we should watch it.
Yeah.
Which I guess was December of 2022. I think I've seen it 4 times now, and we were really lucky to be able to be at Joe Bob's Jamboree in October of 2024, and one of those nights was a John Carpenter night. He showed up and spoke in between, during the segments in between the films. And one of the films that they played that night was The Thing.
Yeah.
And this was at a drive-in. And that, I'll have to tell you, I'm sure I have, if I really dug deep in my brain, I could think of some great cinematic experiences, some film-going experiences from my past. But as of recent, watching The Thing on the big screen at the drive-in is one of my favorite movie viewing experiences in a long time.
Agreed. Under the stars with a bunch of other horror fanatics. Shout out Mutant Fam. That was really, really cool. And just getting to hear Joe Bob and John Carpenter talk about it and his other films was really, really great and definitely contributed to my excitement when we spun this movie last time.
And I think the other Carpenter film I played was Prince of Darkness, right?
Yeah, which I had never seen before and really enjoyed too.
So The Thing was released on June 25th of 1982. You were born, I was not.
Oh, wow. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, in between.
And the budget ended up being around 15 million, which is about 50 million today. And the box office was 19.6 million at that time, which is about 65 million today, approximately. And the reception was not good.
Not good at all. They were very disappointed. And also, the budget was more than Universal had ever spent on a monster movie before.
At least the special effects.
At least the special effects.
Was my understanding.
Yes. Their original budget was only $200,000 for special effects. And that was more than it had ever spent on a creature film.
But it did open to negative reviews. The special effects were praised for their achievement, but criticized for the repulsiveness.
Visual repulsiveness, yes.
And there's lots of reasons cited for the poor reception of this film. At that time, there were a lot of successful sci-fi and fantasy films and some particularly optimistic representations of alien invasions. Do you know which movie I'm talking about?
I do. It's E.T.
Which is a good one. Not as scary, although they were going to make a horror sequel, or at least they pitched a horror sequel so they would never have to do a sequel. And I kind of wish somebody'd tackle that now.
Oh, interesting. We'll have to wait a couple decades till it's out of copyright.
I don't think it really works like that anymore, but we don't have time to go into that. Also, the audience at that time, the movie-going audience, was living through a recession. So other reasons cited for the poor reception was that they might not have been in the space for sort of the bleak tone of this film when there were so many other more positive options.
Yeah, life was tough then in the early 80s. And so people didn't want something quite as nihilistic as The Thing, particularly the ending, which I'm sure we'll talk about as we continue.
Yes, and it's like improv class. Yes, and you see?
Yes, that's good. That's good.
Aside from what other, mainstream movies might have come out that year, and I'm not sure it was as great a year as 1985, which we talked about in our Fright Night episode. But there's still some horror gems that came out in 1982. You had Amityville 2, Basket Case, the Cat People remake.
Okay, yep.
Creepshow, Deadly Games, which we watched within the last 6 months or so. That was that one where there's the guy in the theater playing the board game, people were dying.
I don't remember it at all. I'll have to go back and look. I believe you that we watched it, but it clearly didn't make a huge... Oh, nope, there it is. Okay, found it. Yep, now I remember it. Board game, people dying in a theater. Got it. Cool
and
vibe. Yep.
Friday the 13th, Part 3.
All right.
That was the barn one, the 3D.
Oh, yeah.
3D one, lots of yo-yo action.
Yeah.
Halloween 3, Season of the Witch.
I love Halloween 3.
Yes. The House on Sorority Row, which we watched this year. That was the one with the pool and the sorority party and the house mother who turned up dead under circumstances we can't discuss without spoiling the film. And that one also had a great band playing at the party. One of my favorite things of the 80s horror movies is a live band performing at a party or a club. Also, from that year, it was a French movie called The Living Dead Girl, and I'm actually watching a bunch of movies by that director, Jean Rollin, French director. Did a lot of movies in the late 70s through the early 90s, I'd say. We had a couple of movies from Lucio Fulci in 82. You had Manhattan Baby and... Where was the other one? Oh, Manhattan Baby and The New York Ripper. He was really feeling NYC that year, Lucio Fulci was. You haven't seen either of those. I've only seen New York Ripper, which you need to see because that has a Donald Duck collar on the phone. The person making reports on the phone sounds like Donald Duck.
Amazing.
Next of Kin, which I have not seen. It's supposed to be really good. One of my all-time weird Italian movie. Oh, no, this one was more Spanish. Sorry. Pieces came out in 1982.
Oh, great. Great movie.
Then Poltergeist, of course. Q the Winged Serpent, which was a Coen film. The guy who did The Stuff a few years
Q
later.
the Winged Serpent? Didn't we watch that?
You did not, but I did.
I thought we did.
The Slumber Party Massacre.
One of my favorites.
And then Argento's contribution to film in 82 was Tenebra.
Okay. In that really large context, The Thing, I guess it's easy to see why The Thing might have struggled a little bit. It also, while it is a horror film, it purposefully does not hit some of those horror tropes, which we can talk about later when we talk about Vibe and about John Carpenter. But it wasn't super jump scary, right? Very different approach. I also had included in my notes on reception, I had included some about the sequels and some of the merchandising afterwards, because I thought that was kind of cool.
Yes, I have that in here as well. What you got?
Hold on, let me put it where it belongs.
The one thing I wanted to mention, and then you should go on. Obviously, this film has been reappraised since it first came out to bad reviews and all of that. It's now considered by many as one of the top sci-fi horror films of all time.
True story. And many people look at this and have it at the top of their list. So I did dig into that a little bit later when we talk about with themes, because I want to talk about that. I want to unpack that a little bit. But the only other part that I had about reception, other than what you've already mentioned, I'm not sure if you ran into the story about the tradition that Antarctica research team has at the Antarctica Research Station, where they watch all three versions of this movie. So The Thing from Another World, 1951, The Thing, 1982, and the prequel remake, The Thing, in 2011, after the last plane has left for the season. So the people staying in Antarctica for the winter watch all three versions of this movie every year.
That's pretty amazing.
Isn't that cool? Because that's what I would want to watch if I was getting locked into a station with a number of people. So I thought that was a cool story. And then in terms of merchandise, there was a 1982 novelization. There have been some comic book sequels. There was some haunted house attractions, board games, a video game that I did look into a little bit. It was a 2002 squad-based third-person shooter survival horror. If you know me, and I guess you're getting to know me if you don't, I do not play third-person shooters or survival horror games. Occasionally I will play survival games, but I get way too nervous to play horror games, which is funny because I love horror movies, but horror games, I'm too close to the action. So I never played that game, but it did have a really good reception for a video game based on movie. Not all of them do well, and that one was really, really popular.
And we've not seen the 2011 movie. I haven't heard fantastic things, but yeah, I'd like to check it out at some point for sure.
Definitely. But I have also, did not hear great things about it. But
well, now that we've talked a little bit about the reception by the greater public, what's your reception of this film? How did you receive it?
I received it. It is one of my highest rated films of all time. So my personal rating, well, I have a 5-point scale for myself, and that is I get 4.5 out of 5, because it's just, there's nothing I can say that makes it less than that. And as far as kind of our rating here on the podcast, where we've got a 3-tier system, where almost everything we watch is a 2, and every once in a while there's a 3, this is a 3. This is a must-see. If I was going to introduce someone to this genre that I have so much affection for and interest in, this is one of the movies that I would show them. And I'm guessing that you're close.
This is one that I watch. Every time I watch it, I like it even more. I think it's amazing. So I would definitely put it in that 3-tier. Whether I would have the first time we watched it, I don't know. But yeah, 1's total trash. 2, most movies that we love to watch. And 3 is reserved for those special films like The Thing. And it might be one of the highest, Well, I don't know. We've watched some really highly rated films so far. It's not gonna be like this forever.
Yeah.
We're lucking out on our draw on the wheel and everything like that. But it's an 8.2 on IMDb, which is really high for a horror film.
Which is crazy for a horror film. It's an 85% tomato meter on Rotten Tomatoes, so that's critics, and then 92% popcorn meter. So this is a favorite now with the critics. It was not when it was released, as we discussed, but it has become much beloved by many people who are into horror. Although I found plenty of people on Reddit who disagree and think it's overrated and thought it wasn't scary and thought it was dumb. And those people are wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Those people exist everywhere. And it's their opinion. It's not necessarily wrong, but I feel like a lot of people watch a lot of movies that they have high expectations for and don't put themselves in the right space for it. It's something I'm trying to teach our 13-year-old. You know, sometimes we'll watch a movie and it'll be brighter out and she'll be like talking through it and then she'll say she wasn't scared. And, you got to give the movie what it deserves for what you're watching it, especially if you're going to set such high expectations. But anyway, that's my spiel on that. I think that covers all of that information. Shall we transition into our story time?
Let's do it.
Here we go. This is a story time. Story time. I'm falling apart. My songs are not good this week.
That's okay. That's okay.
Story time.
That was great.
Story time. I feel like you could be story time. Wow.
That was really good. Guys, you should stick around for the songs.
So
they're coming.
This is story time. We're talking about. First, we'll get into the production a little bit, and then you're going to take us into characters and themes and all that good stuff.
Yes.
The development for this movie actually began in like the mid-70s.
Fascinating, very complicated story that we could dive into for longer than we probably need to, but yeah.
Yeah, no, this could be a 3-hour episode. We're not going to do that.
Let's not do that.
The other interesting thing is that we've said we're not spinning the wheel today for our next movie because we know our next movie is going to be Halloween.
Yeah.
Which is also interesting that we've sort of got a double John Carpenter thing going on. So I think I'm going to save some of the John Carpenter or Dean Cundey stuff for Halloween since that's the earlier film, but we'll touch on it a bit.
Awesome.
But John Carpenter was not the one who started the train rolling on this. There were a couple of producers who suggested that an adaptation be made of the short story.
I read the short story.
Good for you.
It was a lot easier to get through than The Exorcist, which I still haven't finished.
What is the short story called?
The short story there's actually a couple different names. I didn't even write it down. Thing from Another World is the name of the movie that was based, the 1951 movie. Hold on a second.
Which was directed by Howard Hawks and written by Christian Nibby. And they wanted these producers, David Foster, Lawrence Terman, wanted a more true adaptation of the short story.
It was called Who Goes There by John W. Campbell, who is really, really important sci-fi writer and editor who discovered and developed a bunch of sci-fi authors like Isaac Asimov and Robert Heinlein and all sorts of others that are responsible for classic sci-fi. And yeah, the short story was very accessible, very quick. I think it took me maybe an hour, I don't remember. I read it in bits and pieces, but it was more of a novella. It's not super short, but this movie, the 1982 version, is very true to it. I did not have a chance to watch the 1951 film, but I did look at some synopses and looked at some of the choices they made just because I think it gives really great context for the production of this film.
Well, and one of the big things that they did change from the novella in this version, which I might get to a bit more of that here soon, but there's way less characters.
Yeah, there's 37 in the original novella, and we had a hard enough time with the 12 that are in this film. This movie, a big part of our watching was like, wait, what's his name? Did we have his name? Who's that guy? And yes, they're all guys. This is one of the only movies I've ever seen where there are no women,
except
The Voice,
which was by
the wife of. Oh, come on, where's her name? I wrote it down, and we know her because she's been in some of our favorite movies.
She's been in a lot of John Carpenter
She's been
movies.
in a lot of John Carpenter
and
movies.
she was in Creepshow, which came out this year.
Yes. I can't find it in my notes. Remind me of her name. Haha, I can't find it in your notes either. Where is it? There's a lot of notes, and when I'm scrolling through them, it is tough. We'll find her at some point. But the only woman, Adrienne Barbeau, I just remembered it. I don't know how I remembered it, but I did. And she is the voice of the chess computer. But that's the only woman. There's no women. I thought about writing my song about that. I didn't end up doing that, but I thought that was an interesting thing we could dive into. No women in the novella, however, multiple women in the 1951 film, which also had a romance subplot. I appreciate one of the things I love about this version of the story and this film. Romance would have had no place. It would have just been there for like no reason. It's so streamlined and cut and focuses on the paranoia and the fear and the unknowing. And it didn't need romance. It didn't need anything more than what it had. I was really happy with that choice.
There's a bunch of rights hoopla that, if we were a movie rights podcast, we get into that. But Universal acquired the rights. Spooky. And Carpenter was first approached about the project in 1976. But at that point, he was, considered an independent film director. I think he'd already directed the movie Dark Star and potentially, what is that? Assault on Precinct 13.
Yeah, another good one.
So Universal kind of was hesitant. Obviously, they're a major studio. And so at that point, they decided to go with Tobe Hooper.
So cool.
He was under contract with them already, but they became unhappy with Hooper and his writing partner's concept for the film. So they got all these other pitches for this adaptation from a bunch of writers. They attempted to get some other directors, including John Landis, and they just could not succeed in getting the ball rolling, and the project was put on hold.
Right. And then the success of Alien in 1979 revitalized the project, which I think is really interesting if we're talking about alien movies, right? That there was this interest in alien movies again.
Absolutely.
And again, and also, I mean, obviously The Thing is an alien movie, and then we talked about E.T. already, so there's a lot of comparisons to other alien films. A lot of the people on Reddit who didn't like this said that Alien was a better alien movie than The Thing, which is obviously up for debate. But I thought that was really interesting that because Alien did so well, that this movie came to be.
Yeah, and like you said, Alien was in 1979, directed by Ridley Scott, and Carpenter in 1978 had just had humongous success with a little film that we'll be tackling in our next deep dive episode called Halloween.
Oh, yeah.
He was reluctant at first because he was a big Howard Hawks fan.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he still is a huge Howard Hawks fan, but he felt that the original version, The Thing from Another World, would be hard to surpass. So, but the one thing that he thought really could be improved from that version was the representation of the actual thing, the monster. I don't even know what you call the thing, really.
The Thing.
And he thought the story was really timely for him, was another thing that drew him in. And he thought he could make it true to the day like Hawks had done with the original version.
Right. The original film version in 1951 really drew on a tradition of cosmic horror and the monster in that movie, The Thing, was very, very different than the one in Carpenter's. And the other thing I thought was interesting was that after reading the original novella, Carpenter drew parallels between it and Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None, which is, a mystery. This really is a whodunit, right? That it has these, so it's horror, it's body horror, and also a mystery, which is a really cool vibe and very, very different from Halloween, which he had finished. And he actively made choices in the direction to move away from some of those horror tropes because he came off Halloween and did not want this to be the same thing.
Right. And by this time, like we mentioned earlier, in the Halloween franchise, they were already to number 3, but he wrote Halloween 2. He did not direct it. And I don't think he had much to do at all with Halloween 3. So he was trying to branch out and not get sort of pigeonholed into one type of horror subgenre, so to speak. And this was his first big budget major studio film. And he brought along, we'll talk about it a bit more in the vibe check, but he brought along one of my favorite cinematographers, Dean Cundey, who he had worked with on Halloween. That was their first project together. Then they did The Fog and was Escape from New York before this or after this?
He had just finished Escape from New York before doing this. And actually, the reason he didn't want to write this himself and why he asked them to bring in another writer was that he had just completed work on Escape from New York in 1981. And so I found a really great interview where he talked about how much he had worked on Escape from New York and how he did not want to write on this. But he worked very closely with the writer, Bill Lancaster, and did some writing in the second act.
Well, and so this was, even though this was their fourth film together, if I'm mathing correctly, Carpenter and Dean Cundey, this was their first big budget studio film, which, comes with it certain pressures and such. But that is how they were able to get a sizable budget in comparison to what they've been used to, which brought along its own problems, but also gave them a lot more room to work with and allowed Carpenter to really realize his vision for what he wanted the film to be.
As far as other filmmakers go, unless you've got more on Carpenter, but I know we're going to be talking about him for the next couple episodes. Bill Lancaster, writer. I read a bit about him because, of course, very interested in adaptations. He's the one who reduced the number of characters from 37 to 12, which is still a lot of characters. We'll go over that. He had done The Bad News Bears, and he was the one who came up with some of the key scenes, particularly the one scene where I will always remember watching at the drive-in, the Dr. Copper shocking the character and the thing coming out of his chest and biting his arms off, right? Like that moment with everybody was just so, so cool. But that was one of Lancaster's scenes. And actually interesting, I also thought in terms of interplay between the filmmakers, he wrote the screenplay with the monster in the shadows, which is pretty typical for monster movies where you don't see the monster right away. But Rob Bottin, the special makeup effects designer, said, no, you have to put the monster in the light. And I think that's one of the things that we will continue to talk about. But the choice to put the thing up front and center at very early on in the movie compared to many creature films, that was something that came about because of the interplay between the filmmakers and was not part of the original script.
And then, like we've said before, there's basically 3 versions of this story. The 2011 film, that's kind of a prequel, but really you have the novella, you have the 1951 film, and then you have the 1982 film. And they really all took different approaches to how they ended the film. And that's sort of an interesting aspect of the production side of things, was kind of figuring out how they really wanted to end it, right? Because the novella, you read it, so.
I did. The novella ends in a more hopeful way, where they're almost sure that they've gotten everything, although they do wonder whether a bird could have flown over or something like that. But
and that's why I don't want to have birds.
You do have a thing against birds. It's true.
I don't have a thing against them outside. Birds can do their thing. They can exist.
But they're so cute and they sing such pretty songs.
Yeah, and we would be fighting with them to record.
That's true. We would. Yeah, they did make a very different choice. And I think the way that this film ends is perhaps one of the reasons why things didn't go so well at the box office, perhaps. And even for the 1982 film, there were multiple endings written and screen tested, and this one was not the one that everybody liked, but it's the one that Carpenter liked. And so, but it's very bleak, very nihilistic, and I don't know, I wonder how it would play in today's world.
Well, because Lancaster's first ending, right, had Childs and McCready at the end, who were the two that we have at the end of the final version. And they're both become the thing, and then they get picked up in the spring by a helicopter or something.
Yeah, by a helicopter, and they say, "Hey, let's get a hot meal." So that is even more depressing, I guess, or kind of like the worst case scenario. I think Carpenter's choice to make it ambiguous just leaves it hanging in your mind after so much more, right? I think that choice, what did he say? I can't find where I wrote it in my notes. At one, he thought, Carpenter thought that ending was too cheesy.
Yeah. Well, and then he had another ending before this final one where he had them both slowly freezing to death, kind of as a heroic ultimate sacrifice, right? And then I think Lancaster kind of landed on the idea for this ambiguous ending, but that's what Carpenter, I think, or maybe they worked on it together, but sort of where they landed in the end was this ambiguous ending.
Right. Oh, Carpenter thought that the original ending where they got rescued, but they were both the thing, Carpenter thought it was too glib, and so really wanted to push on these themes of paranoia and fear and distrust. And we as film watchers are left feeling paranoid and not knowing who to trust and not knowing what it is. Although Carpenter has said, again, major spoilers here, guys, but that Carpenter has said that one of them is the thing, but has never said which one. So
and there's a lot of debate.
There's much debate.
The leading theory, which Carpenter has discredited, is that, once they're sat down, Childs and McCready, and they're having their final sort of back and forth before the film ends, you see a lot of breath coming out of McCready as he speaks, and you do not see that with Childs. So the implication maybe being that Childs is the thing. He's not producing that human breath anymore. But I guess Carpenter has said that's not necessarily true. So who knows? Maybe he's just trying to keep it more ambiguous as well.
Hard to say. There's a lot of healthy debate on the internet.
I think now's a good time to go into the characters.
Oh, of course. I mean, there's so many of them.
We don't have to cover all of them in detail.
We don't. But I do have I do think it is fun to go through them, because this really is, yes, this is about the thing and the special effects, but it also very much is about the relationship between these men and their environment and the thing, and the way that the thing is able to sow distrust and discord among them. And let's start with the man himself, McCready, the helicopter pilot, played by Kurt Russell. Absolutely amazing performance.
Yes, and he and Carpenter really had a strong working relationship together. I think it started when they did a TV show, like a TV movie called Elvis, and Kurt Russell played Elvis, and Carpenter was the director for that. But then Kurt Russell was in Escape from New York, and this movie, and Big Trouble in Little China, and some other ones that I think I'm not thinking of.
Yeah, no, they had a really great working relationship. And this character of McCready is just so pivotal, right? And this is one of the things that Bill Lancaster, the writer, was known for, was writing ensemble pieces. And this is an ensemble piece. This is about the interplay between everyone. But McCready is our hero, right? And that was a very active choice by Carpenter. We start out strong with McCready pouring scotch into the computer. And I wrote, as we watched this time around, that one choice tells us so much about McCready, about his character. He is impulsive, he's arrogant, he's a sore loser, but also that he's clever, he's smart, he's a strategist, he likes to play chess. But also, how expensive and hard to replace was that computer? And a scotch, or whiskey. It wasn't scotch, but is it? I can't remember. But yes, R.J. McCready, helicopter pilot, played brilliantly by Kurt Russell. One of our 12 and one of our final survivors Is he the Thing? We don't know.
Could be.
Could be. I don't know. We've got Captain Gary, the station commander, played by Donald Moffat. A great shot with a pistol in our first opening scene.
Yeah.
Smashes out a window and just pew, right? Like,
Take that, Norwegia.
take that. Full disclosure, I am part Norwegian, so those are my people. Donald Moffat, very, very long history, was the president in Clear and Present Danger. He's been in a bunch of other things I'm sure you've seen. Fun fact, Donald Moffat and Kurt Russell are the only stars of The Thing that worked with James Arness, who played the original monster in The Thing from Another World. They both worked with him on episodes of Gunsmoke in 1955.
Wowzers.
Or maybe not both in 1955, but that's when Gunsmoke was. So I thought that was kind of neat. Captain Gary, very interesting character as well. He's a leader, but not nearly as much. He's technically the commander of the station, but not nearly as much of a leader as MacReady. We've got Bennings, the meteorologist.
Yes.
Played by Peter Maloney. He's the first confirmed absorbed by the Thing. Also gets shot in the leg by the Norwegian at the beginning of the movie and like barely does anything about it. He's like, oh my, I appear to have been shot, right? Like he's a trooper.
Just grazed. He's fine.
Just grazed. We've got Clark, the dog guy.
Yes.
Who's a really interesting character.
Quiet.
Very quiet, loves his dogs, and of course is devastated by their loss in the kennel scene.
Of course, his closeness with the dogs and his quiet demeanor make many people suspicious of him very early on.
Yes, exactly. And he does end up dying, but has not been absorbed.
Right.
That his behavior is purely human behavior. His suspicion and his aggression, he is shot in the head because he tries to go after MacReady with a scalpel. And MacReady defends himself. But yeah, feel bad for Clark, although he doesn't get absorbed, so that's good. We've got Blair, senior biologist, played by Wilford Brimley.
Yes, that old guy.
That old guy. Blair's a really interesting character because Blair is the first one who figures out that the world's going to be taken over by this thing, right? And so he destroys all the communications equipment. He destroys all of the transportation because he says there's no way that anybody can leave here. Everyone here must die.
He really takes the action into his own hands.
Oh, doesn't talk to anybody. Which
is probably the right thing to do.
Yeah. What would you do in that situation if you realized that it would take we did the math. It would take 3 years for the whole world to be completely overtaken by the thing. There's not a lot of space in the movie to talk about the thing and the science behind it. In the original novella, which was written by a science fiction author, there's a lot of stuff about the science of the thing and how it does what it does and the cellular activity. And they, I think, did a really great job of showing that with that little computer program that very specifically existed in 1982 to show how the cells were taken over by the thing. Yeah, I think Blair probably did the right thing, but then, of course, at some point is taken over by the thing and becomes the final boss.
Yeah, and builds a spaceship underground and...
Builds a spaceship. Wild.
Or at least that's what it appears to be. I'm not sure if they ever land on that.
I think that's what it's supposed to be. That was the impression I got. We've got Dr. Copper, the physician.
Dr. Copper.
Played by Richard Dysart, which I think the most fun thing about this most recent watch was me saying, does he have a nose ring? And we're like, I don't know. Does he? He did. A doctor with a nose ring in 1982, like a middle-aged man with a nose ring, which these days not as uncommon.
I'm not sure you see many doctors with nose rings.
I think you see more of them now, for sure.
You've seen a doctor with a nose ring.
I mean, I think it's more common now I've definitely seen healthcare workers with nose rings.
It was definitely why he got sent to Antarctica. That's for sure.
Because he was wearing a nose ring in the 80s. Dr. Copper, solid dude, loses his arms, unfortunately.
That's why you have to yell clear before you do the paddles.
Yeah, make sure. We've got Palmer, the assistant mechanic, which, again, I didn't know everybody's roles while watching. I definitely had to look these up. But played by David Clennon, who's an interesting guy. Actually, he was a draft resistor during Vietnam and has turned down multiple roles in films and TV that promoted the death penalty and torture. So he's a big activist, but has been in a ton of movies and TV. I really enjoyed Palmer's character, the stoner mechanic. He was a lot of fun. We're still not done. Remember, there's 12 of these. Good. Can't believe there was 37.
Did you say Windows?
I did not say Windows yet. Windows, the radio operator. Poor Windows. He was pretty stressed out the whole time.
Yeah, he's got that anxiety.
He's got a lot of that anxiety. We've got Knowles, the roller skating cook.
And I recognized him from shows and stuff from when I was a kid.
Me too, and I couldn't remember which one specifically, and eventually realized it was Punky Brewster.
Oh yeah, and I'd watch that too.
He played Mike in Punky Brewster, but TK Norris was in a ton of shows in the 80s, 90s, 2000s. So, but good old Knowles, he almost made it. He was one of the final 3 or 4, but not quite. We've got Norris, the geologist with the carnivorous stomach, played by Charles Hallahan. And then 2 more. We've got Fuchs, the assistant biologist. He's the one that takes Mac out to the tractor, played by Joel Polis. And then Childs, the chief mechanic, Keith David.
Yeah, he's great.
At one point, I wrote while we were watching, did they send Childs out to the cabin because of his deep, calming voice? They send Childs out to talk to Blair when he's inside the cabin, and his voice. We have seen Keith David, and so have you, in many, many things. Actually, one of my favorite Keith David roles is his role in Future Man.
I think that's where I first saw him and registered
who he was.
Who he was. And it is funny because that was from 2017 or somewhere around there. Future Man, a show.
Really great show.
Hulu. And he plays like a doctor, professor. Obviously, he's much older than he would have been in the thing. And it was he still has that voice that is very unique and commanding. And it was funny the very first time I watched it and realizing it was him, like almost the voice, because he's so much younger, the voice almost didn't belong to that young guy.
Yeah, and he's done a lot of voice acting as well. Not surprising.
He was also in They Live, which is another John Carpenter film.
Right.
Later 80s.
That's right. Oh, man. That's so cool. I forgot about that. Interesting tidbit about Keith David. The day before shooting, he broke his hand in a car accident, and his hand was so swollen when he showed up to start shooting that Carpenter sent him to the hospital. They punctured his hand with 2 pins to get the swelling down, and he wore a surgical glove that was painted to resemble his complexion. And actually, his left hand is not seen for the first half of the film because it was so messed up from the car accident.
Yikes.
Yeah, so I thought that was kind of interesting. Again, the things that you have to put up with when you're filming.
The things.
Yeah. Oh man, that's a tough one. And so as far as story goes, some of these things we kind of talked about. I kind of separated out a few things. I don't know if you had anything specifically about the characters, but I had a few notes about just the plot that kind of feeds into the themes and things.
Yeah, we can get sort of moving into the themes.
Yeah, let's move into the plot and the themes. First off, the choice to show the spaceship at the start. I was thinking about...
I always forget about that.
Yeah, we know that this is an alien from the very beginning. So the mystery is not that there's an alien. The mystery is how will this play out, right? So many monster movies, the monster is a mystery. And in this one, it's not. We know from the very start there's something messed up with that dog, right? What an interesting choice. And I listened to a few podcasts and read a few things, and some people don't like that choice. They think that ruins it because it takes it away. But it's one of the things I think that makes this movie end up at the top of so many top lists is that it subverts what you're expecting. Because if you already know it's an alien, then what are we looking at? We're looking at how is it going to show up? How are these people going to figure it out? So yeah, I was wondering what you thought about that.
Well, no, I mean, it's just like you were saying, because there is a mystery element to this, but it is not the mystery that you're typically dealing with in a horror movie or a sci-fi horror movie where you're wondering where the threat's coming from. Instead, there's a bit of that. You're wondering where the threat's going to come from next.
Yes.
But you understand fairly early on that something is taking over living beings, and nobody knows how you get away from it, how you stop it and how you're going to deal with it in general. And is it you? Is it?
Yeah. Would you know if you were infected? There's that. Oh man, that part is so cool.
It was really interesting, that scene where Kurt Russell's alone a bit later on in the film, maybe 2/3 of the way through the film, and he's drinking. I mean, he's drinking the whole film, but that's not an identifier for the scene. But when he is making that recording, he's recording notes.
Yeah, that's in the running for one of my favorite quotes, actually.
Why don't you hit it now? I don't have a favorite quote this week.
I know. I have a few. This was one of them. That scene really hit me. I know the one you're talking about. McCready says, "Nobody trusts anybody now, and we're all very tired." And then he erases that and records over it with something more logistics based, right? Like, he doesn't want whoever finds this tape to know that they didn't trust each other and that they were all very tired. That monologue where he is recording an update. And actually, if we're jumping to that,
that's one of the big themes, right?
It's, the loneliness and the isolation and the not being able to trust anybody and being tired. A point of storytelling brilliance. When he's doing that audio recording, he says, "The storm's been going on for 48 hours. It was a great storytelling device, right? Like, it jumped us ahead, 56 hours or something from where we had been. And just the bleakness of that monologue really pushes on that loneliness and paranoia theme. Oh, I did look up what the Norwegian guy is saying as he's yelling out of the helicopter at the beginning. "Get the hell away from that thing. That's not a dog. It's some sort of thing. It's imitating a dog. It isn't real. Get away, you idiots." So I would like to learn how to say that in Norwegian. Oh, also, speaking of McCready's drinking, do you remember what kind of scotch he's drinking? It is scotch.
Yeah, he's drinking the Jalo Classic JB Scotch.
J&B Scotch.
J&B Scotch, which if you go back in the 70s and watch either Argento films or Fulci, people are always drinking that scotch, which seems so strange to me. I don't know what the connection is.
I do, because I looked it up, because I noticed it. It was very purposeful. It must have been purposeful on their part. So J&B Scotch became a running joke and a cliche among fans of Giallo. It was a symbol of sophistication and virility. It was a very popular brand with Italian-American celebrities like Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin. And so in the 60s and 70s, it became kind of a mainstay of Giallo movies, many of which we've watched. The big, the bird with the crystal plumage. I mean, that's
all
the one that just jumps into my head right away. But so Kurt Russell, so even that is pointing us towards, and Giallo movies are very much mystery movies, right? And so this has that connection. So I thought that was really neat.
I think it's funny that that's considered a scotch of sophistication back then, because it certainly is not now. I mean,
I don't know. I haven't had it, so I might have to try it.
I don't think it's super expensive. It's not like, people talk about scotches now. They're talking about McClellan or Johnny Walker. Is that scotch?
Yes. I am a whiskey drinker, but not a scotch drinker normally, so I don't usually have scotch around, but I may, the next time I go to the store, may pick some up just to have maybe a bottle in our, on our shelf, our horror shelf. That'd be like a real deep cut. So yeah, those were just a few more of the things in the story. Other themes, the sacrifice and protection of the human race. We talked a little bit about that with Blair. Like, what would you do if you knew that in order to save the human race, all you had to do was die? Like, oh man, how many people would make that choice? And not only die, but make sure that all of your buddies who are also with you in this isolated station die, right?
Well, and it's interesting too, because isn't that really what we see in a lot of horror movies, or movies in general? It's about decision making. I mean, that's what life's about. So we're seeing that reflected in film. It's about decision making. And one of the big tropes of horror movies is that people are, not necessarily making the decision that you think you would make, even though it's a lot easier to try to make those decisions when you're sitting safely on your couch at home.
Yeah, chill out, Barbara, right?
But in terms of I feel like we've watched a few movies recently that have to do with making a decision that affects the world population and not just necessarily the immediate characters.
And I think back in 1982, there was, even though they were in a recession and things were tough, there was nowhere near the amount of division and anger and paranoia and distrust that there is today in our world. And The Thing creates that paranoia, that fear, that distrust. It kind of tears down the walls of security and trust that folks have built up with one another. I mean, we were joking earlier that COVID is kind of like the thing, but like, I don't know, there's a lot of things that could be the thing these days. And how many people would be willing to make that kind of ultimate sacrifice because of that connection to something deeper? Horror very often explores the things that are present in the zeitgeist, right? It digs into what are our fears and worries and concerns. I think The Thing does that so well, and is probably the reason why it has become such a classic. And what makes it so good? Because that was the other question I kept asking myself. Why is this so good? And when you bring this movie up to people who like horror movies, many of them, I mean, again, plenty of naysayers and trolls online. I saw one person saying it wasn't body horror because The Thing is an alien and body horror is about the human body. And I was like, how can you even...
Don't tell me about what Redditors are saying. I
know,
don't care. Or
but
Letterbox people,
okay.
like, people want to delineate. Get out of here.
But I just want to point out that it takes all kinds, but for all of that, we still have the IMDb rating that's far above most non-horror films. Most horror films are rated much lower on IMDb than they are within the horror community, right? Except this movie doesn't. And I think that all of the choices that were made, from choosing to kind of avoid the classic horror tropes, like the thing behind the door and the jump scares, there's not a lot of those. It's just pure disgust and distress and fear. And like, I can't believe that guy's stomach just ate that guy's arms, right? Like that disbelief, jaw on the floor. Yeah, I could see why people might not want to watch something like that if they're already feeling bleak and nihilistic. But I think that's most of what I have to say about the themes and stuff. Who's your favorite character?
That's a good question.
I had a tough time with this because there's so many freaking characters.
Either, I don't know, maybe Knowles. I just kind of like his vibe, skating around.
Got a cool vibe.
Seems like I love the game room in this. I know that's not your question, but they got a cool ass game room for 1982 Antarctic station.
They had a VHS player. I didn't even know VHS.
Oh yeah, we were talking about that when we were watching it. They had VHS player, and I didn't realize they were even out yet.
I know that in the mid 80s there was still a fight between Betamax and VHS because my dad got the Beta. We had Betamax because it was the superior, according to him, technology. I think it was higher quality, but it did not win. VHS won the day. But whatever they had.
Bring that up anytime he thinks he knows for certain about something.
Like, hey, Dad, remember when you got that Betamax player? But we used to go rent movies at Lechmere. Where are my fellow Gen Xers? We did a lot of movie rentals when I was a kid. I watched Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds on Betamax. So take that. I was not old enough to watch that movie.
Knowles, but I mean, I really like, to get back to your question, yes. I really like McCready.
He was like the first, I was like, of course it's McCready. He is so cool and so, just so cool. Just from his monologue to when they think that he's been turned and they lock him out and he comes in and has the flamethrower and the dynamite. He's like, come on, bitches, what you gonna do? Right? Like, he is the epitome of cool. But other than McCready, I thought about it. I think Palmer's probably my favorite character other than McCready. He talks about like the ancient Incas and the aliens kind of stuff, which I thought was really neat when they bring up aliens, and he's super chill. I mean, he also has a pretty cool death scene, but and then favorite line. I know you said you didn't have a favorite quote. I love the quote from McCready, "Nobody trusts anybody now. We're all very tired." But I think the big quote from this movie actually comes from Gary, and great delivery on the part of our actor here, but "I know you gentlemen have been through a lot, but if you could find the time, I'd like to not spend the rest of the winter tied to this fucking couch."
Yeah, that's a good one too.
Classic. Classic. That was probably my win for favorite line, but I think that's all I got for story time. I mean, I could keep going, man, but that's what we've got for tonight.
Yeah, no, we'll keep it rolling. I think that means it's time for vibe check. Do vibe check, do vibe check.
Nice.
Probably get through this a little bit quicker than some previous weeks, even though I have just as many notes as usual, but I am battling COVID brain and doing my best.
And we're going to talk about Dean Cundy's cinematography in great detail, I think, for our Halloween episode. But yeah, why don't you take it away? Cinematography.
Right. Well, and like we said before, this was their first big budget film, studio film, even though it was about their fourth film together, Cundy and Carpenter. One other major difference that Carpenter wanted to make between his version of this film and the Howard Hawks 1951 version was he wanted a lot more on location, real live sets, as opposed to everything being on studio stage, which I haven't seen the original, but I can kind of picture what they're talking about. And they were really successful with that. They scouted out some great locations. You know, they started filming. I get a little confused about what I read filming, but it sounds like they started in Alaska, but they also did a lot of the filming in Stewart, British Columbia. According to Cundy, he gives a lot of credit to the production designer in terms of what they were able to create visually in this film. His name was John Lloyd, the production designer. I'm just confirming that. Yes, John Lloyd was the production designer, and he understood sort of the assignment and knew what to create. Cundy, credits him with constructing for sets for really good camera angles and scenic value. And of course, the major difference between this and Halloween or The Fog or Escape from New York is we're going from sort of either a suburban or urban setting. When you're talking about the exteriors, particularly, you're going, from something that's a lot tighter, a lot more populated, to all of a sudden just this vast expanse. This gorgeous scenery. And I think a lot of that was in Stewart, British Columbia. They basically were staying outside of this mining town. And from what I understand, they built the exteriors of the station in the summertime in like August of 1981 or something. I might not have some of this exactly right, but I've got the general gist. And then they waited till the winter. So it was all covered in snow, and they had to keep the building temperatures to a certain temperature so that there was always snow on the roofs, but they ran into a lot of snowstorms, snow so heavy that they couldn't even film. But I guess they also shot some of it on the Universal lot, some of the interiors, where at the time it was like 100 degrees outside, and it reminded me of The Exorcist, that they had to super cool the interiors to like 28 degrees using portable ACs and stuff.
Yeah, this also seemed like a very stressful filming set, right? Like that there was a lot of, then they were all bundled up and then they were in the cold. Yeah, this seemed like this was probably physically a very demanding shoot.
I guess at some point, Carpenter was able to view sort of an early cut of the film, and he was kind of frustrated or dissatisfied that there were just so many scenes of guys just standing around talking, and he rewrote some already completed scenes to take place outside and shot on location when they moved back to the exteriors in British Columbia.
Yeah, there was so much care taken throughout the whole production process. And really like very reactive filmmaking, right? So like watching cuts and then going back and then changing it and rewriting. There's a lot of deleted scenes. We don't have to go through all those. There are a lot of documentaries about this film. Like there's a ton out there there's a really rich background for this film that comes through in the final product, which obviously everybody loves it. Most people love it.
Well, and really, Dean Cundey, just briefly.
He's your favorite.
Well, I don't know if that might have been true. I don't know if it is anymore.
That's fair.
We've watched a lot more movies since then. And he might well be, but he shoots a nice picture, we'll say. He started in the early 70s, but his first movie with Carpenter was Halloween. He ended up doing like Rock and Roll High School, but he also worked with Carpenter on The Fog and Escape from New York. And he also continued as the cinematographer through Halloween 3, which I think contributes to those first couple of sequels, to really, really adds to the consistency of those films. And even though, like Halloween 3 has no Michael Myers in it, it still feels like it's within the universe. And I think a lot of that is due to Cundey's cinematography. And of course, he'd go on to do some other films that may or may not be considered popular, like Back to the Future and its sequels.
Heard of it.
There's some other Carpenter in here. He did Who Framed Roger Rabbit. So he was working with Robert Zemeckis, because that was a Robert Zemeckis film. He filmed Roadhouse, Jurassic Park, The Flintstones, with John Goodman. He did Casper from the 90s, talking about Devon Sawa. Flubber, Parent Trap. I mean, it goes on. It literally goes on. And I'm not going to continue. Was that a cat just pulled on you?
The cat is pulling on my headphone cord.
That's not very nice. So, needless to say, he's done a lot of fine work, Dean Cundey. And I just love how this movie looks. It goes from those vast exterior shots to really those claustrophobic tight shots in the station where you feel like you've got no way to escape because you've got a snowstorm going out in these beautiful mountains, and you're trapped in here in this station with 11 other people who may or may not be infected, or however you want to put it. And he was really, really able to capture that. And when it comes to the scenes of the monsters showing themselves, there was a lot of debate on how they wanted to approach filming those scenes. And, at first they were, he thought he might be trying to obscure those monsters more. But as soon as he saw Rob Bottin's effects, and once he first saw some of these monsters, he was like, no, we need to show these. There's a fine line between showing these creatures but he didn't want it to be obvious that they weren't real, but took the approach to show them more than you usually would maybe in a film like this. The other thing that was really important to Cundey in this film and to Carpenter was to get wider shots, to shoot on anamorphic widescreen lenses, to be able to, especially to capture some of those exterior shots. So
there was one shot that I remember that I noted as we were watching. It's when Mac has the flamethrower and they're all suspicious of him. And Clark, the dog guy, has the scalpel kind of palmed behind. And you can see Clark in the far left of the screen, that wide shot, right? Where McCready is there kind of facing off against everybody else. And Clark just has this shiny little scalpel over in the corner. And that some of the shot composition is just so great, right? But still tight, like that claustrophobia, like you mentioned.
Well, and he also really wanted to create a contrast between inside and outside the station. And really throughout the film, he kept the exterior shots sort of blue lit to contrast from the warmer lighting on the inside, so that you felt like it was warmer on the inside than out.
Yeah. Really great, and contributes to the ambiance of the film and the contrast between those two. I know it's an 80s film, but it still had a bit of the 70s vibe for me in terms of ambiance, right? Which makes sense, 82, right? And it was started in the 70s, but oh yeah, that warmth and that realism and like feeling it like you're really there, very lived in, just really a comfortable place to watch. I don't know how to explain it. I'm not good with this part. This is your part.
I know, and I don't have as much strength and brain power as I usually do. But another thing that was pretty neat to read about was, there are several times they're using flamethrowers, or they have, what do you call those, flares that they're using for practical lighting. And Cundy really thought it was great to be able to use those for lighting. I mean, they just provided so much unique color and lights and shadows to the scenes. And he talked about how they would never be able to do that today because of the smoke that they give off. But, they really took advantage of some of that practical lighting that really brings the audience into the environment of the film.
I always know it's a good movie when, as we're talking about it, I'm like, man, maybe we should watch that tonight. Like, I know we won't. We have plenty of movies that we need to watch that are on our list, but this is why this is a 3, right? Like, this is a movie that you can watch kind of over and over, and it's just like a comforting, you see something new every time, but it's also familiar. And so much of it is how all of it, the characters, the writing, the cinematography, the ambiance, it all comes together to just create this beautiful piece of art, which is why we're here, right?
The last little thing about Cundy that I'll do today, and it is a shame I can't go more into the details of how this was filmed, but, we're running on the longer side of an episode, and also I'm trying to pare it down for myself here, but he was asked about, did the fact that it was a big studio movie change his approach to filming? And really, when he walked on, these sets were huge to him. That was the reality of it. It was a much bigger shoot, and he thought this is going to be tough. But what he did is he broke the big challenges down into smaller, more manageable and understandable pieces, so we wouldn't get overwhelmed, which I think is a good approach to anything that anybody might face in their job or life. There's not much that you can't handle. It might be bigger than you faced before, but you break it down into the smaller, manageable pieces that you can wrap your head around and go from there, which I thought was pretty good perspective.
Yeah, that's great.
So that's the cinematography aspect of it. What do you got for special effects?
I got a whole bunch for special effects.
Nice.
And we could, again, probably do a whole 3 hours on just the special effects. I'll try to give a broad overview. I mean, this is the one thing that the critics of the time appreciated. The creature effects, and there was a lot of different versions of the thing, right? A mixture of chemicals, rubber foam latex, fiberglass, plastic, gelatin, creamed corn, mayonnaise, bubblegum, strawberry jam, mechanical parts, marionettes, prosthetics, hydraulics, and puppetry. Holy smokes.
I bet they smelled really good.
I bet it was like super great to be there. The other thing I thought was interesting, there were post-production effects, but those kind of effects were not commonly used at this time. And so the actors really had to adapt to Carpenter describing to them what the characters were looking at, particularly, I think, especially in that like final scene where the Blair thing comes up from underground and they're fighting it. Like, I think there were some animation and stop motion things that didn't make it till the final cut, but that the actors still had to film and go through. One thing you asked me while we were watching, first of all, is how they did the title screen. So I did look that up.
Very good.
The visual
A+ for effort today for you.
Really, just for that scene. That's fair. That's fair. I like A+. I like being told that I'm good at things.
You are good at things.
Thanks, dear. The visual effects designer, Peter Curran. So it was a fish tank, which we had guessed. A fish tank filled with smoke. The title was hand-drawn on an animation cell, which was put on the back of the tank. And then I was right about part of this. A piece of black plastic from a garbage bag was stretched over the frame and placed directly behind the animation cell, making it all black. And then a light was placed behind the plastic to shine through the letters. Then as the camera filmed, they burned the plastic garbage bag with a lit match, burning the plastic away and allowing the light to burst through the letters. So I think I had guessed that I had said garbage bag, actually, when we were watching it.
You're always saying garbage bag.
I'm saying, that's like what I say. They're like, the kids are like, oh, Mom, what's for dinner? A garbage bag? Haha. It took many takes to get it right, but they did. So that was how even just the opening scene, right? Or the opening title screen was special effects. I had a bunch of questions while we were watching, knowing that I was going to be looking at a lot of these effects. For example, how did they get the dog to chew through the wires in the kennel scene? Because we love dogs. We love animals, if you didn't know that, even when they're biting our headphone cords. Cat's not a dog. Cat's not a dog. The dog in the movie, though, was eating a fence that was made of edible material, not metal, gelatin and spun sugar that had been hardened. So when the dog is chewing through the wires to get away from the thing, in that first scene where we actually see the thing, don't worry. John Carpenter actually is a huge animal rights person, very into making sure that the animals are okay. So all the animals were okay, which I'm not surprised about. But I mean, again, there's the whole documentaries about this, but the defibrillator shock where the hands go into the stomach, there was a fiberglass dummy of Norris, the geologist. They even recreated the hair pattern on his chest. There was so much time. And actually, maybe this is a good time to talk about the special effects, which, of course, Rick Botton, which I had up in the filmmaker section. This man, who was only in his early 20s, had previously worked on The Fog. Rob Botton, he was fresh off of special makeup effects work on The Howling, which I don't think we've seen, but I know is on our list somewhere.
I've seen it.
I haven't.
We own it.
We own it. Not surprised. He worked for over a year. He created every creature effect except the transformed dog. Who did the dog? Do you know?
Michael Jackson.
So close. It was the person who did, whose name I didn't write down, but who did Alien. So there's another.
Stan Winston.
There it is. Thank you. I couldn't remember. He came on to do the dog because Rob Botton was in the hospital. He ended up with, by the end of production, he was hospitalized with exhaustion, pneumonia, and a bleeding ulcer in his early 20s.
I feel that.
I bet you do. He worked 7 days a week for 14 months with his 35-person crew. Many of them never had a single day off. That is 57 weeks, 7 days a week. So just so when you're watching this movie, how much blood, sweat, and tears went into this. Rob Botton just over, beyond, and above. So back to belly opening, chewing off arms. The dummy of Charles Hallahan recreated his chest and the hair pattern on his chest. They used prosthetics and viscera, multiple body moldings, and a hydraulic rig that clamped down on the doctor's arms to rip them off. Hallahan was in a harness underneath the fiberglass suit, so it's still his face, at least for part of it. I love this. They had a double amputee who was hired just for this shot, wearing arm prosthetics and a mask of Dr. Copper. So when his arms go into the belly and get ripped off, it's because they used a double amputee who they hired specifically for this shot. And then the creature emerging from the chest cavity, it took 10 hours alone to set up just that shot. So when you think about why this poor guy ended up in the hospital, these shots that are, 15, 30, 45 seconds total maybe on screen, to take 10 hours for one simple shot. The dedication and the passion for this film, unmatched, seriously.
Well, and it's funny too, we'll eventually get to Alien, and, there's a lot of discussion, there's a lot of praise, as there should be, absolutely. I'm not saying there shouldn't be. Alien's fantastic. About the alien, the stomach burster, chest burster scene, which just kind of has a similar lore to it about how much it took to set it up and the reactions and having to reset it and stuff like that. But I mean, this movie, obviously it's a few years later, so they can look back on movies like Alien and think about what sort of effects they want to use and create. But I mean, there's a lot more in this movie in terms of those kinds of big effects.
There are so many shots in this film that would be the ultimate shot in any other film, right? Like even the dog scene, the kennel scene, where we first see the thing come out. We've got the stomach scene. We've got when Palmer changes when they're doing the blood test, which is just such a fantastic scene that hits on all of these things, the special effects, the themes of paranoia and distrust, the character development. When Palmer changes and then eats windows, like all of these scenes would be epic in any other movie. And this one just hits you with them over and over and over again. The other one that I took special notes on, so the Blair thing at the end, The foam latex monster was 5 feet high, 8 feet in circumference. And that's the one where they worked on a stop motion scene, which involved a smaller scaled Blair thing. They had an animation effects artist, Randall William Cook, who worked on Lord of the Rings later, worked with a miniature supervisor, hours and hours of work that was ultimately cut from the film because it didn't match the vision, right? So there's so much work that went in that didn't even make it to the final cut. I think it is a brilliant example of how all of this hard work and passion turned into something that really connected with the audience. There's so much we could say about this. One final thing about the base, because not only do we have these special effects and the gore special effects and the creature effects, but also there's a lot of explosions, right? So the Norwegian camp, for example, those scenes were filmed after they had destroyed the American camp.
Right. I just learned about that. I want to be looking out for that the next time we watch it.
Me too. Same deal. So they filmed the Norwegian camp was actually the American camp just after they burned it out, right? To save money because again, they had such a huge budget for this. I don't know if you saw this. This blew my mind. So the explosive destruction of the base, where they blow everything up, required the camera assistants to stand inside the set with explosives, which were then activated remotely. The assistants had to run to safety while 7 cameras captured the base's destruction.
Dope.
Can you imagine? So camera assistant, that's got to be low in the hierarchy when you're making a film, right? Like one of the lowest. And your boss is like, take
No
these
offense,
explosives.
Camera assistants, you're making it.
I'm talking about the higher, like you have to start somewhere and you work your way up, right? But like you're a camera assistant on this horror film. It's 1982. You're working with some famous people and it's a big budget, but also you're just getting your start. And they're like, here, hold these explosives. And then we're going to tell you when to run. But if you don't run, you might blow up. Like, what? What a crazy, crazy experience it must have been filming this. So I thought that I wanted to include a little bit of that in my special effects as well. So yeah, again, this movie, even though it took a couple decades for it to reach its classic status in terms of the story and the film overall, the special effects from day one have been lauded by critics, and for good reason. So there's a number of documentaries out there and a ton of really great articles and information about the special effects if you're interested. I certainly very, pinnacle of horror, and you should look more into it if you're into stuff like that. I think there's only one more thing that's part of Vibe Check, which is the music, which of course, as musicians, we should care about. Do you have a little bit about that? I have a couple things, but not a lot.
Yeah, of course.
I know.
I mean, you could, speaking about doing long podcasts, you could do an endless podcast if you wanted to do films that were scored by this famous composer who scored this film, which I didn't notice until this most recent viewing. We have Ennio Morricone. Am I saying it? Morricone.
Morricone.
Who has scored a bajillion films and a bajillion fantastic films. He really started in the 60s, I want to say. I didn't even take notes because it was just so long I couldn't pick out there's parts that stuck out to me. He really got going, it seems like. I mean, he was a musician in his own right, and he did plenty of music that was not related to necessarily to film, but he eventually got tied into the spaghetti western genre. He did the Fistful of Dollars trilogy, the Dollars trilogy, which were, the Clint Eastwood films.
I'm nodding my head like I know what you're talking about, but I don't. I'm going to be transparent, but I believe you.
He did a lot of westerns and spaghetti westerns, but he does have a strong history in giallo and horror. It would be hard to be a composer in Italy probably during this time period and not get into these films, even if you didn't want to. But I mean, he worked on a bunch of Argento films. He did The Bird with the Crystal Plumage, The Cat o' Nine Tails, Four Flies on Grey Velvet, and The Stendhal Syndrome. Oh, and Phantom of the Opera. So that's...
Ooh, which Phantom of the Opera did you
Argento's.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
He did some other horror movies. I don't think I've seen any of those. He did a ton of other giallo films, like Forbidden Photos of a Lady Above Suspicion. I think I've seen that. The Black Belly of the Tarantula. I've definitely seen that. And Autopsy. I mean, those are just a couple out of this really long list. So, I mean, he's just done so many movies.
So many movies. And Carpenter picked him.
Yeah.
Because he wanted the film to have a European music approach, so which I thought was kind of cool. And also, doesn't the score sound a lot like Carpenter's own music? Because Carpenter did the music for Halloween, which is iconic.
Right. And we'll be talking about that more, obviously, in our Halloween episode. I do think, from what I read, Carpenter did, he made it clear to Morricone kind of what he was looking for. And I think he actually played one of the examples that he gave to Ennio was the score for Escape from New York.
Oh, nice.
So I think that might be where you get some of those sort of crossover similarities. He was nominated for a bunch of Academy Awards, but I think his first win was for Hateful Eight with my buddy Quentin Tarantino. And
Your
I call
buddy.
my probably my all-time favorite director, and I know I'm not alone in that. Maybe somehow we can squeeze one of those movies in someday.
That could be a fun little side episode.
Tarantino originally wanted Morricone for Inglourious Bastards, but Morricone was unable to. He worked on some of the music maybe for Django, or at least composed one song for that movie. But he finally did the full film score for Tarantino's Hateful Eight, which was made a lot of sense for Morricone after his long history of Westerns to now be, scoring a modern Western on the scale of Quentin Tarantino.
Cool. So neat. Well,
and speaking of music, maybe we should do our music.
I think it's time for the open mic.
And we messed up. We're going to always mess up at least once per episode, probably. And we don't usually know we messed up until after the fact.
True.
We spun for the movie and got The Thing.
Yes.
But we neglected to spin a writing
gimmick.
So we decided just to go freestyle. And I don't know what your approach was, but you will soon see that I took the approach of writing from the perspective of the thing.
Oh, man, I can't wait.
Did you do that?
I didn't.
Did you do that?
I did not do that.
Well,
Cool.
you should do that.
No, I shouldn't. And you should do yours and I'll do mine. And then we'll do them together.
Well, that's what we're going to do.
Okay, let's do it.
So we're going to move to the open mic.
Yes.
Catch you back in a few.
Okay, so I think this is called Who Are We? It's a bit of a power ballad, kind of flowy. So yeah, this is my song Who Are We, inspired by The Thing. What lies in the hearts of men? A stranger, you've become my friend. I knew you once. What have we become? And I thought I knew you. Now there's some new thing moving through you. Oh, how do I ever trust again? And I walk through fire and ice just to find out the truth of who we are truly. As we run down these halls all alone, far from home, I know the answer is here in the blood and the bone. And who are we? Maybe we're all better alone. That way we can't ever be let down. God, I'm so tired. Am I even alive? And I thought I knew you. Now there's some
Wow, for someone who's struggling to write a song, that's something else.
I really struggled with this one, and I just went full on into my musical theater power ballad roots. And so I really like it. It doesn't feel as fully complete. Like, I feel like there could be something else thrown in there, but yeah, that pre-chorus chorus is pretty intense. And maybe now that I've sung it, I can talk about it. But that scene where McCready is recording the message into the tape recorder, which is one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie. And he is talking about how no one can trust anybody. And I thought that's one of the themes of the film, right? Is you can't trust anybody. And so I think one of my goals going into writing this song, a lot of the songs I write are very specifically about the film, but this one is one that you could probably listen to without knowing that it's about literal blood and bone, although that's nice too. So yeah, I'm actually I'm pretty pleased with how that turned out.
Well, that's what I was going to say. If you let me say it.
Okay, good. I succeeded.
Knowing that it's about the thing, obviously it's about the thing. But also, you don't have to know that, and you're not confused about the metaphors or anything like that. Like what you were saying.
Yeah, that's what I was going for, was something, because I think that is the beauty of the film. And one thing that Carpenter really succeeded at was exploring the theme of what happens when you can't trust anybody. I don't know if I've told this story about the horror short story that I wrote for a college writing class. And it was about a demonic possession. And after reading it, everyone in the class was asking questions like, is the possession like a metaphor for her drug abuse? And I was like, no, it's like a literal demon, except that with horror movies, I think we can explore some of these things. And so, yes, this is about an alien inside people, but also sometimes the people that we think we know become alien, and you feel like you can't trust them anymore. I don't have a lot of experience with this in my own life, but I think a lot of people do, perhaps.
Well, I'm not going to trust you when you say you're struggling to write a song.
Okay, I still struggled to write this, but doesn't mean it wasn't good at the end, but it was hard to get to. So, all right, cool. Your turn.
Okay. This is my song inspired by The Thing. It is tentatively titled Who's the Thing? And then subtitled, in parentheses, I'm the Thing.
If I can get away from this chopper, I'm gonna do what I was born to do. I'll assimilate till I replicate, slowly work my way through your crew. I'ma mosey on into your station, and no one's gonna be the wiser. I've done it before, and I'll do it again. You'll never see through my disguise, 'cause I'm just surviving. And I'm unaliving what gets in my way. And now that I'm thriving, it looks like I just might be here to stay. I plan to take you over one by one until you turn against your closest friends. That is not my intent, but it brings about your descent. And before you know it, this is the end. I'm just surviving, and I'm unaliving what gets in my way. And now that I'm thriving, it looks like I just might be here. But it looks like they're on to me. They're not gonna like what they're about to see. Oh yeah, now they're on to me. But I will hide inside and lie until you've died and I am free. 'Cause I'm just surviving. And I'm unalive in what gets in my way. And now that I'm thriving, it looks like I just might be here to stay. It looks like I will never go away.
Oh, you got to come talk into this microphone now. It's going to be super easy for you.
That was so great.
You might need to hold it.
I'll hold it. Oh my goodness. That was so much fun. I love the juxtaposition of kind of the like bouncy, fun, cute sing-songy with this alien thing. I like that you took its perspective. I love the chord on Survivin'. Every time it came up in the chorus, I was like, oh, that's nice. I like it. I think it's some sort of sustained something or other.
I think it was just a minor chord, but
maybe just the minor, but whatever's on top, like, it was really great. And bridge, solid, as always. This man, ladies and gentlemen, can write a bridge.
But contrasting from yours, mine was very literally about the movie.
Oh, very much so. But so have, I mean, many of mine have been about the movie, but then you've also written plenty that are not you've written some that are not specifically about the movie, or that could kind of go both ways, as mine does.
Yeah.
All right. That was great.
All right. We're losing light.
Losing light.
Close it down. All right.
That was so cool.
We're losing light.
Losing light. So we need to, well, we're not going to spin our next
Not
movie.
spinning a movie.
But we do need to spin a gimmick.
I've come up with some new gimmicks. I have not put them on a wheel.
Okay.
Give me one splittity spleckant. I'm sticking with that.
I don't want you to get COVID again. Like, this has been really awful. However, it does have some entertainment. It does add to the entertainment value. I'm sorry. I'm looking on the bright side, you know?
I mean, if I could just sit here and do these, I don't like the way my voice sounds.
I think it sounds fine.
But I don't like the way it feels, I guess.
That's fair. I don't know how it feels, and I don't care. That's not true. I do care. I'll make you some tea.
I can't even count on two hands how many times you said you're going to make me tea this time I've had COVID.
I know, and then I forget because I have a short-term memory problem. And then you don't tell me. And then I forget.
All right, we'll see how this works out. I'm going to make a wheel. There's some on here that I don't think are going to be great necessarily.
Okay.
But there are some that are interesting. So give me a number between 1 and 12 for fun.
7.
Oh, yeah, this is going to be great for Halloween. This is called Killer versus Victim. And one POV is the killer and the other is the victim.
That's interesting. So who does what? Who do you have a preference?
I don't have a huge preference.
I think you should be the killer and I'll be the victim.
Would it be more interesting if I was the final girl and you were the killer, especially since I went from the killer's perspective?
I was actually, no, now that we're thinking about this out loud, I think you might be right. I guess that would be, it's my turn to be the killer.
And I'll be Jamie Lee.
Ooh, I like this.
That's what they call me at the post office anyway.
They call you a lot of things at the post office.
True story. All right. So next week we'll be here for The Thing, the encore for The Thing.
Yep.
And in 2 weeks, right around Halloween time, we're going to be celebrating with you with another John Carpenter classic, 1978's Halloween.
Oh, yeah. We'll see you then. Or you'll hear us then. See ya.
I'm trying to make sure we haven't forgotten anything else.
I'm sure we have.
All right. Good night.
See ya.
Good afternoon. I don't know what time it is you're listening to this or what time it is now. Toodaloo.
See ya.